Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. 3 massive series in the CDL tonight, ending in very interesting fashion at the end of the day. But OpTic Texas go 2-0 on the weekend. Not exactly their cleanest performance though this weekend. Another Game 1 question mark against the Los Angeles Guerrillas today. Plenty to mention though. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. There was lots happening today as well. David Vonderhaar, of course, Trek, Legends, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3. I mentioned it again, baby. Stay tuned, he says, for an update tomorrow. So I guess we'll see exactly what that's going to involve in the very near future indeed. And also Doug Leby putting together here the winners bracket probability of these respective teams. Now we'll mention Thieves here in a couple of minutes, of course, based on what happened today, but based on what we've seen already, basically Toronto, OpTic, even Vegas were very high likelihood winners bracket qualification on the way that things are looking right now. Miami though, all over the shop. Thieves, all over the shop. And of course, Thieves have a very hard bracket stint, and it was no doubt an absolute must-win series for those guys today. Los Angeles Guerrillas, we'll mention them in a couple of seconds, but these, of course, were the matches that were going on, or at least the teams that were playing today. First match, though, the Toronto Ultra versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. And I saw some comments on this morning's video, because I said earlier today this series would be interesting, and people were clowning me and saying it was going to be a slammage. But it was interesting, you know? Look, Ultra won, fair enough, but it was interesting, and I think there's no doubt that Vegas have taken some steps. I mean, all of the maps here were pretty competitive, really. Obviously, the Game 2 is causing most of the headlines, let's be honest, because Ultra got slammed in a way that we've not seen them get slammed at all so far this season. Now, sure, it was one map of Search and Destroy online, but I think Vegas have taken a step, and there's no doubt in my mind that Purge is so much better on the sub, and this Vegas team looks legit. Like, they've always had the talent in some respects, but putting it together, it's again, right, it's the same way. Toronto dropped Stanley, they got better. It's like, are Vegas going to drop Stanley, get better? It kind of looks like it based on what we are presently seeing. And Game 1, it was again a Rio, right? I kind of expected this map to be fair based on what we had seen previously. But yeah, Ultra do eventually get the job done. Again, it was pretty damn competitive. But Game 2 was the real talking point, I've got to say. Like, we don't see Ultra get slammed often, and this was one of them. Now, it's a Rio Search and Destroy, new map to the pool. It might not be Ultra's favorite map. Let's not forget, of course, that they absolutely loved Skid Row Search and Destroy, a map that's been ousted, of course, from the pool now in favor of this map, Rio. Now, I think Scrappy, the first time they played this one, Ultra just completely slams the opposition at the time. It was a different story this time, though, and yeah, Purge the scene, baby. This guy was cooking. 6-0 in the search, take it all the way to a Game 3, and Geo didn't even die. I mean, 4-0, you don't see that every day. Even inside the S&D, you know, god that he is, was only 4-6. They couldn't do enough, and they got 6-0 slammed. So, you know, let's be honest, right? It's the same way that Ravens, they went to play FaZe when they did during that online qualifier stint before the major. They took him to Game 5, looked pretty impressive, and that foreshadowed a solid run at the major, at least looking pretty competitive. Now, that Ravens might no longer exist, unfortunately, in terms of how competitive they were, but this has got to be good signs for Vegas. Now, the Game 3, they eventually lost it, and the Game 4 was just so competitive, right? Vegas will be kicking themselves. They didn't, you know, capitalize on this chance to take it to a Game 5, but again, like Toronto, they're back on that 2 hardpoint win streak. They're clearly the best hardpoint team in the game, and Vegas were very, very close to taking one off them. Like, they probably should have done it here, all things considered, on the Karachi, but the kills going their way. You know, Scrappy went big time, and yes, all of today, there were talks about questionable spawns and stuff like that. We know it to be true. It's the reality of the game, and the discussion was there with Envoy, and certainly with Scrappy, actually, after the series, who said, this game is so awful right now, goddamn. And yeah, the spawns, there's lots of problems. And even a team like Ultra that have been so dominant, it's not clear that they can just continue to dominate all the teams they should be beating, because this was, you know, an entertaining series, there's no doubt. So the overall results look like this. The high-rise control was 3-1 to Ultra, you know, 252-32 Game 1, 252-47 Game 4. So Ultra still the best team in the game, still the team to beat, but today it was only Scrappy positive on their team. Legion, Geo, and Nero. I think Geo was really impressive to me today as well. And Purge, you know, held his own. Even when Attach didn't have a great series by his standards over the last couple of weeks, he still was having lots of impact, though. They still made it pretty competitive. And to be honest, I was expecting this series from OpTic and Guerrillas to be slightly more dominant, really. But again, the Game 1, like, OpTic come out slow, and it's a weird one, right? Because I thought after yesterday, after the slow start they had against Rocker, they would really come to play. Today, I thought they would come out the gates just swinging. But again, it was, you know, I told you guys this story yesterday on how OpTic can sometimes be when they lose to a team they're not expecting to be. And I think we saw it again. I mean, sure, they probably should have traded this one. Fame catches them off guard. But Guerrillas just completely completely slams them here in the game one. And yeah, Gorillas take down OpTic 250 to 122. Like, it's rare that you see OpTic get slammed in hardpoint like this, but they just lost every rotation, weren't even especially competitive. Gorillas looked great, of course, but I think it was more OpTic not coming to play. And we saw that as the series progressed and they actually started to turn up. But again, I think there's positives and negatives to this view, an OpTic fan, because it's not a great sign to start out the two series they've played the last 2 days in the way that they have. But the way that they've come back from that is something that OpTic haven't necessarily been that good at in the past. It's that regain factor when you go down 1-0, you go down 2-0. Being able to come back and win it is not a particularly, like, OpTic sometimes have not been great at that. They've had their fair share of reverse sweeps over time, but losing a game one like this and coming out in the Rio Search and Destroy, you know, Dashy gets a crazy acer as well with the 3-piece there on the flank and closes out the final one as well, just to set up the situation for OpTic to get back to 1-1, because that's what Kenny would always talk about on Thieves. Yes, they got slams game one, but they could have lost game one 250-249, and it's still the same mindset they've got to have. They've got to think, okay, fine, let's just bounce back 1-1, and that's when Thieves, when Kenny was on that team and they won the World Championship, just got so good, was when they recognized that, sure, we're going to lose game ones, but let's always make sure we bounce back and win the Search and Destroy. And OpTic feel like a team right now that is actually capable of doing that more often than not. This was hilarious as well, right? We go into this control and the observers get the Benjay Asim round straight up on the screen. I knew this was going to happen today. Like, I could predict this and see this coming a mile off, but the opportunity presented itself, and that's exactly what we saw. And of course, there were some certain images, such as from Ghosty, going around during the course of the day. But OpTic clutched up here again. I mean, it wasn't quite as emphatic as what we saw against Rocker yesterday, but it was another game 5, and this time it wasn't all offenses, it was pretty much all defenses, and OpTic did really come to play on the final rounds. So, you know, we know that they've got the offensive strap book in the arsenal. They unleashed that against Rocker. They can do it on defense as well. I think that's where OpTic were really strong in a game like Vanguard, was that they were just so good at control, Tuscan control especially. They were so hard to beat during a stint in that game. And if Karachi control can be that map for them, then I think they're in a particularly good spot. So yeah, Shotzzy says got fried that first map, or I mean, he says fried that first map, but yeah, I think probably he meant the other way around, and that's certainly what he's saying. And as Kenny says, you know, GG's Gorillas, got to keep improving, right? 1-3-1 at the end. They eventually took the final hard point as well. And obviously Dashy is pretty happy they got on the winning end of it. You know, nice 10 points on the board, nice seeding, setting up here for OpTic going into the major. But they can't afford to do this against better teams. Even against Rocker, when they started the way that they did, I mean, they shouldn't have won that series. There's no two ways about it. They should have got 3-0 there, and we'd have an entirely different conversation right now, and certainly yesterday if that had have happened. Didn't happen though. They clutched up, they showed the ice. But if you play Toronto, FaZe, probably New York, you're not going to get away with that in the way that you get away with it against the Minnesota Choker. And today, against Gorillas, we saw some good ice, but, you know, you can't be coming out of that slow game one, and it's been a pretty consistent trend. As Kenny says, got to clean up the hard points, just lag down to the team first map, it didn't rotate moving forward, though. So, you know, again, I felt like OpTic came into this one feeling they were going to win. To be honest, I think Toronto do a similar thing in their series as well. And online, it's not the end of the world. The teams are going to qualify for champs anyway. It's about learning at this point, but the victory is nice. Just by way of comparison as well, over the last few years, this was their record after the first 15 series of the last several years. They were 9-6 in Cold War, 12-3 in Vanguard, of course, one of their better starts, 9-6 in MW2, 10-5 in MW3, and these are the other numbers over history as well. So, you know, that kind of just puts into a bit of perspective how OpTic have started this season in comparison to others, and they do have a relatively easy split here. I don't think Gorillas are an especially good team, and when it came down to the skid row, OpTic did show their class and were comfortably the better team in the series. But there will be questions raised, and I think that OpTic have had a pretty good weekend, really, because they won both their series, but they've got lots to focus on and learn from, which I think they'll need to do, especially because Ultra are looking, you know, I wouldn't say vulnerable precisely, but it feels like you can get an Ultra maybe more than you previously could. Getting 6-0'd on Rio Search will set off alarm bells at Ultra, and will also raise the question for other teams as to whether their search and destroy map pool is somehow exploitable, especially because OpTic won 6-2 on it today. I'm sure OpTic will feel confident in a Toronto series that that might be the way to lean the map pool. The final series of the day, though, Thieves versus Miami Heretics, an absolute must-win, no doubt about it, for both parties, right? I mean, Thieves needed to win the series. They even had a watch party going on today as well, and I respect the brave souls that attended this watch party, because if I was a Thieves fan, I don't know if I'd be confident enough to go to like an actual watch party and see the team play kind of in person, because it's been rough recently. But I did expect them to win, and they did win, but man, did they make it hard work for themselves, right? I mean, the entire series is ridiculous. Ghosty as well. I think that everyone on Thieves had their moments here, but Ghosty has really shown today why he is the man for the future of this team, why Nadeshot said the other week that Ghosty is the man they're going to try and build around and have as kind of like the future of their franchise in some respects, because, I mean, today he almost broke the damage record, nearly had 20,000 damage, made some big plays as well towards the end of the game. Well, that really continues. Game 2 was just dominance, to be honest. Like, we know that the way that Miami play the game, as a team, it's not necessarily the best. We've talked about it before, we'll talk about it again, and the discussion has been that ever since they started the league, they look pretty good. Their consistency in executing this game plan isn't really working. We know they're going to be inconsistent, and I think we kind of saw some of that because they went into the game 3 and they did get the victory. It was a high-rise control, went down to the wire. Octane was mind-blown as well that they actually won a hardpoint, can you believe it? But the issue is for Thieves is that you definitely cannot rely on them to win 2 hardpoints. I mean, their hardpoint record is pretty atrocious this game, so the idea that they're going to win 2 hardpoints in a series was probably one step too far. So winning the control would be really nice. Otherwise, you've got to win both search and destroys, and that's what they ended up doing. They won the Karachi. Afro had a great game here as well. Again, we know what we get out of Afro. I think he was certainly much better today, to be fair. He was actually holding some pre-aims, I think, more than I've maybe otherwise seen in the past. And against a team like Heretics, when they don't hold pre-aims either, you could probably get away with it a little bit more. But, you know, Miami won the control. They then won the hardpoint as well, and they got it to a game 5 here on the invasion. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen at this point. The game 5 as well was pretty absurd. There were plenty of rounds. It wasn't the most high-quality game 5 that I've ever seen. I mean, even the first round, Thieves had a 4v2. They throw it away, they lose it. And then it's around 11. Thieves have the defense. They end up getting the kills they need. But then it's a 2 versus 2, and it's kind of all down to Ghosty to deliver the goods. And in the end, they do get the job done here, right? I thought it was cool, the reaction from the live watch party that they had here. I mean, yeah, thank God for those guys that actually took the victory, because it was a much-needed win. I think the Thieves played substantially better today, but there's still lots that they're going to need to improve on. And yeah, still, the slide for Miami continues. Thieves, I still think they can qualify for the World Championship. I mean, maybe that's not really a hot take, to be honest, because it's still early days. But I did say it the other day on the Breaking Point show that I still think the Thieves can, like, they have the talent really to put together a run to be better. And when you've got teams like Ravens and Gorillas and Surge and even like Boston looking pretty ugly, they've got to feel confident they can actually make a bit of a run of it. And I think it's definitely on the cards right now. So anyway, it's not the most impressive series victory. I really do want to see them play a proper team, as it were. But Miami starting off this stage 0-4, they're looking pretty shambolic. And even when they had their chances, they clutched them in certain situations when the reverse sweep was on the cards and they went to the round 11, Thieves shut it down. So ridiculous day of COD. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.